Get in! Get in!
Welcome to the YouTube Bloggers Match 2023, where you're joining myself and loads of other bloggers at Thorpe Lea Fishery. Now, I've fished this place a few times over the last year or so with work, and I've always done pretty well, so I'm fairly confident with the venue. And the swim I'm in, I've never fished in before, but there's quite a lot of fish in front of me. I'll spin it round. This is my view for the next 48 hours. And if you've ever been to Thorpe Lea, you know it's a very sociable lake. All the swims are fairly tight together, so we're all along this same bank. So to my right, I've got Jay and Chris from back of the landing net, and then to my left I've got pretty much everyone else. So I'll show through who else is here in a bit. But the draw was done in a fairly traditional bloggers match style, with picking out of, it wasn't a watercraft swim, it was more of a fish is just rolling in front of me again. It's more of a picking out cans from a basket. Oh, it's a bird, bastard. That means there might be some food there though. It was picking out cider cans from a basket, and on the bottom of the can was your peg. And I've drawn peg 53, which is, as I've just shown you, this one here. And it's nice and secluded, really. I mean, there's not really going to be anyone else around me. So for the social side of things, I'll have to leave the swim to say hello to people and bring the rods in. But it does mean I've got quite a bit of water in front of me. Now, the pegs here, they all look like you're fishing into each other's water. You've got lines on the front of the swim telling you where you've got to cast. And mine is pretty much from the edge of the island across to about there. That's my water there, because to my right is Jay and Chris, and their water is up to the edge of the island and that way. And then the next swim up is pretty much from there to the left, and so on for the rest of the swims. So it's quite tight swims, but my plan of attack for this session anyway was going to be putting 2 rigs out on a spot and baiting over the top. I've used solid bags here before, and I've also used really simple, I think roddy rigs, but fishing them on the deck with bait over the top. Both tactics have worked. For ease of fishing, I'm actually not going to go down the solid bag route to start with. I've got the bucket with me if I need to change over to that. I'm going to fish Fluoro D-rigs over the top of a load of bait. Hopefully that does the business for me. We've got about 40 odd minutes until rods technically go out. It's a bit of a loose start time on this venue, on this sort of trip. But yeah, get everything set up, get the rods out, and get fishing. Well over an hour into the match, and I haven't actually got a rod out yet, so I've had a little bit of a lead about. The first thing I done in this swim was to see what my margin was for where I can actually fish, check with next door, both sides, check where they were going, and I'm happy with where I'm going to be putting the rods. Isn't going to be interfering with either of them, and I'm fishing my own waters.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
So the next stage was to find somebody to actually fish over. Now, from previous experience, I know there's a shallow plateau out there, so I needed to find that basically. It's low 20s today, temperature-wise. I can already see the fish milling around just under the surface. And there's a lot of fish showing a bit further across the water, so mid-water and towards me and towards the people on the other bank. So predominantly in the middle where they're showing, and then a few cruising here and there. So I put a lead on, cast about, and it was very obvious straight away I was cracking down on the plateau just beyond where the island juts out.
You sure about that?
5, 6 casts, I don't know, that was a random way of saying how many casts, but only about half a dozen casts later, I'm confident that where I'm fishing at 21 wraps is on that plateau. And I'm not right on the edge of it. I was pulling it back until I felt it sort of drop off, and it goes a bit siltier, a bit more weed. I was coming back with some stuff on the lead. So I've made sure I'm probably a good rod length onto the plateau. So I'm not right on the edge. I'm well within the sort of safe zone of that really clear area. Wait for the play in a second. So now I know I'm fishing on a nice and clear area, and I went left a bit, right a bit, but I'm going to aim to have 2 rods really tight and bait really tight. I want to keep those fish in a little area so that if I can get the rods on the spot, odds are there's going to be fish still milling around. I've had experiences on here before where we're doing this similar sort of tactic of putting rigs on a spot and baiting up. They'll come to even the spot, landing on their heads, and you'll get takes that way. So I'm confident that the tactics will work. I may completely eat my words if it flops, but that's the plan. And rig-wise and setup-wise, similarly to what you've probably seen before in my videos, I've got a running lead clip, so it's semi-fixed. It's the weight or the friction of the swivel is what's going to set the hook, but there's no give. Once that then pings off the swivel, it's running really free. No tubing, so that almost becomes like a running setup. So the fish can't eject the hook. There's no pivot point from the lead, so it shakes around. You'll find that the bites may go up and down a bit where they're shaking on the spot. can't get rid of the hook, then they bolt. That's when I have a fairly tight clutch, so that really sets the hook in. I've gone through all this on Syndicate Diaries, so if you want to go back and watch that, please do. And then the rig-wise, I'm using a Fluoro D rig this time, so rather than more of a supple braid, I've gone for something that's fairly rigid but really invisible. And the hook holds and catch rate I've had with this rig are so good that it just seems perfect, especially as I know it's so clean out there. This is an ideal little rig to use. So starting up where it attaches to the quick chain swivel, you'll see that I only use a tiny little bit of a tail rubber rather than covering that whole thing. Because the reason for that is if you had a really long tail rubber on there, if that lead lands awkwardly or it kicks up slightly odd, you're gonna have that tail rubber kicking up. Whereas having this, I've then got all that movement, almost like a complete another swivel without using a swivel, so that can move around freely. And if it lands awkwardly with the lead, this should still settle itself down in a nice and easy way. The double loop kind of serves itself as a kicker or a anti-tangle sleeve, so it kicks away from the lead. And it's just straight down to a size 4 hook actually. Now I'm using these new Gamakatsu hooks from Pole Position, something through work. I've used them this season so far and they are deadly sharp out the packet, so really, really good. Different pattern I'm going to use on this session. A little kicker, some of the OMC ones, wait for the plane again. Plane's now passed. So I'm using some of the little OMC kickers. I've done a video on them recently for work. Kept my hands on a load of this stuff. I thought I'd give them a try myself. Now, the only thing I didn't like about these kickers with a Fluoro D rig is that when you push it down the shank of the hook, it was giving you a really weird shaped D that was a bit too low down the shank for my liking. So it's a bit fiddly, but I've put a bait needle through the back of the kicker, only halfway through, so not through the whole thing. Threaded the bait needle out the bottom of the kicker. Then I've pulled the D through, blobbed it down, so the blob of the D is actually within the kicker, completely hidden, so it's not through the eye, it's in the kicker. Then push the kicker down, and now it's giving me the same shape D that I wanted, but giving me the nice exit of the D. Now I know you can get some kickers with Ds and stuff on there, so I've probably made a really long process of getting this set up, but I quite like the colour of red, the fleck of colour. And then I've got a 3-bait string, as you've seen, that's gone around the whole setup. That's just a little bit of a protection for the hook point on the cast, and it's a nice little parcel of bait around it, similarly to a little mesh bag or something. And then bait-wise, I've got 3 different toppers. I've got a yellow, white and pink, but the baits are all the same. So it's scope it squid out of the bag, trimmed down into a slight cone shape with a little topper, so it should just waft around nicely. And then to finish it all off, a little bit of the bait spray, which absolutely stinks, and that just gives it that last little boost, that last sentence it was, to hopefully draw the fish into these before everything else. So I'm going to get 2 rigs out now. It's 2 rods on this session. I've got 3 rods with me, so hopefully if I get a fish, I can ping a rod straight back out. They're all clipped up at the right distance. I'm going to get the rods out first because there are fish there and hopefully pick someone up straight away. And then I'm going to start introducing bait. But I want to get rods out first before I talk through the bait that I brought with me. So let's get fishing. Oh no, that's Fennel's line. Let's get fishing. I can't use that. Oh, it's staying in now. That'll do. Oh, what am I on about? Spot and sequence rule 101. You must get a shot of the spots skipping across the surface. There we go. That's the money shot. Right, now I can stop spotting. So, first bite of the bloggers match, for me anyway, and it came off. Stop, delete, and start again. For those of you that question how I always get takes on camera, I just do this all day until I get a bite. And I have been doing it all day. I've only had the one bite and it came off. But I can't say I haven't grafted. I haven't filmed everything I've been up to because it would have been repeating the process again. I put quite a bit of bait out and then discovered I was actually fishing slightly beyond my boundary because someone else rocked up around the other side. It's actually the bailiff who I went around and spoke to.
Oh, sorry, sorry, oh, I'm sorry, don't hurt me, sorry.
And yeah, I was fishing beyond. It's really weird, this swim, because this looks like I'm fishing just up to the, well, you've seen where I've been casting, just up to the edge of the island. But his swim round there, I'm actually going beyond the point and in front of him. So he's been very courteous and said, well, he's been courteous and lenient to me and said, don't worry about it. But I have brought my rods ever so slightly closer in by about a rod length and a half. So I'm still probably pushing it a little bit, but I don't want, so I'm now kind of off the baited patch, as it were. So it may pay off that I'm just off the baited patch, but then I put about another 1.5 kilos or so on top of where I now am. But it's been predominantly flake. That's what I've put out mainly so far. The coots have been an absolute menace. So I don't want to put loads of boilies out with the diving on me. They've picked me up twice already. So I've just been putting out flake and they don't seem to be fussed with that because they can't get it. It's all crumb and tiny bits and loads of micro pellets as well. So I've got loads of little bits out there. I'm sure when I get the chance, I will put some boilies out because that's the stuff that's really sickly sweet, covered in spod syrup, got some worm cell in it and all sorts, so full of goodness. And that's what I want to get out there. But at the moment, I just be feeding the coots. So I'm gonna hold off for a little bit longer. And that's pretty much where we're up to. It's been very slow. A few fish have come out and I was holding off having my first, well, I had a side when we got here for the peg draw. I was holding off having my first one until I'd had a fish. That hasn't happened. So I'm going to console myself for the fact that I haven't had a fish. I'm going to have one now anyway. So for those of you that missed really casual vlogs, drinking cider, there you are. I'm giving you what you asked for. Oh, still that first sip of a cider is just bliss. Whew. Right, let's have some food and hopefully have something before it gets dark. Well, I was fully expecting to have a busy night because there was a lot of fish in here yesterday morning when we got here, so I assumed that they must come round in the evening and through the night and into the morning. Nothing happened throughout the night, so I actually got a good night's rest. And this one went off just as the sun was starting to think about coming up, so about 5:20. So he's been resting in the net for about half an hour or so. And this is the first fish I've ever had nearly leap out of the net whilst I was waiting for the light levels to increase and get the camera ready. And I'm not sure, I haven't weighed it, but probably around the 18-19 pound mark. Not going to weigh it. The biggest fish so far is at 25 pound, and I know it's nowhere near that, but it's a start. So I'm very happy with this one. Getting back, and hopefully, with the rod still out there, hopefully plenty more to come. Thank you, mister. Let's get you back. Well, despite being as quick as possible this morning, getting that rod straight back out on the spot because it was ready with a rig all clipped up exactly for that situation. As soon as that fish went in the net, I made sure it was safe, of course, and came back, got the rod, stuck it straight back out, hoping that I could capitalise on a potential morning feeding spell. That feeding spell just didn't materialise. I've been watching the water and there's a lot of fish right in the main body of the water, well beyond where I can fish, and it's mainly people's water to my left and the people opposite. Everyone's casting quite close into the middle. And you can just see that's where they're held up. So where I am, it's very much a patrol route, I think. I might pick up the odd fish. It's not going to be in the big numbers that I've experienced before on here. But I am going to change my approach because despite it feeling nice and clean out there on the marker rod, when I've been bringing the rigs back in, I've got all this silkweed. And yes, it could be presented fine when I'm out there using the 3-bait string. I know the hook's going to be presented, but it might be landing on some of this, sitting a bit funny, or it could be on the winding, I'm not sure. But I don't think I'm getting that accurate a representation of what I'm fishing over with the marker rod. Because it's all braid, you feel a donk straight away, even if it's going through a bit of that silkweed. So I'm going to change my approach. You guessed it. the solid bag setup. So I'm going to take these rigs off, put some solid bags on. I've also changed the spot I'm going to be fishing. I'm now fishing at 17.5 wraps. I've come way further back and I've found a few patches of what feels like clean and then it goes a bit crappy again. So I think it's exactly this. You've got some clean patches and then patches of silkweed. So rather than thinking I've got to be dead accurate, get nailed on a little spot to present these rigs, I'm just going to go for the old faithful solid bag rigs. I've done really well on here before and it just gives me that peace of mind. If I'm landing on clean, brilliant. If I'm not, I still know I'm presented because everything's in that nice little parcel. And then probably going to put some bait on the top as well. Everyone's been making fun of me because it looked like I was making my own island yesterday. I assure you it wasn't that much bait, but then I looked at it and thought it was a 5 kilo bag of flake and crumb and probably half a kilo of boilie, a couple of kilos of pellets. So yeah, actually it adds up quite a lot for one fish. So quite a lot of bait did go out on those spots. I'm still in the vicinity of where that bait is, but very much off the baited spot from yesterday. So whoever goes in opposite me should have a lot of bait to fish over now. But anyway, take these off, solid bags on. I now know I'm fishing at 17.5 wraps and fingers crossed, now we have a bit more of a thought of what's going on out there, we might catch a few more fish. Ooh, tighter than a nun's custard pie. Oh, great. See, you try and do a tarty shot, and then you do something like that, and you look an absolute bell end.
So high, I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right.
Well, I've just been talking to the camera for 5 minutes whilst playing this fish. Went back and checked because I thought I managed to source it whilst playing the fish and it wasn't recording. Anyway, long story short, finally got one in the net. I've got a rig already tied up, clipped up, so I'm gonna get that back out and then we'll have a look at the fish. Oh, been waiting for that for ages. And there we go, fish number 2 of the match for me, 3rd bite, and it was about this time yesterday afternoon that I had that bite that cut me off. So it seems to be that there's a certain pattern coming. This sort of time in the afternoon, some fish might mooch over towards the island and pass around. They're definitely not holding up in front of me in numbers. If they were, I think I'd have a few, but they started showing about an hour ago. I thought, probably won't be long until I have a fish. And actually the coots started coming back over towards me. And I've seen on previous sessions with multiple anglers talking about how the birds can often show where the carp are. They started coming over towards me, and sure enough, this one went off. One on the solid bag on a white hook bait, so something to note. I don't think the hook bait colour is going to make much difference. It's just presenting a rig in front of some hungry fish. And there we go, beautiful fish. I'm not going to weigh this one either. Probably just a bit smaller than that first one, but I'll show you both sides because it is a beautiful linear. And there we are with the other side of the fish. There's not stacks of fish coming out in this match. I think the odd angler's having 1 or 2. A few people still haven't caught, so it's not like everyone's catching in numbers. But the biggest to catch is still 25 pound from Math. Right, if I can keep ticking away, enjoying my session, catching a few fish, doesn't bother me. Grab a few snaps and slip this one back. Whew, that silt stinks.
In it goes, launched by Corner. Can it find a red shirt? It's found.
Go on.
Or maybe Matty James.
Yes.
Yes, get in!
Really won it.
Get in!
City's captain has silenced the den. The lions have been tamed, surely, at the death. And it's Matty James who finally finds the score sheet.
Apologies, YouTube. Bristol City have just scored a last-minute winner at Millwall.
May just have given City all 3 points.
So as you would have just heard, I'm extremely ecstatic because Bristol City just scored a 94th minute winner out of 5 minutes added time. So for those of you that aren't into football, you're probably thinking, oh, it's just a game. Those of you that are into football, a last minute winner away, oh, doesn't get any better than that. So really enjoying life right now, and I've had a few sizes, of course. Rods are out. The fish seem to have come over to me a little bit. The coots follow. I've been watching the coots a lot, and wherever they are, the fish seem to roll within them, but they've now bugger off again, so I don't think the fish are above me. The social is next door in about 10 minutes, so I'm gonna head down there. We're gonna get a takeaway in, bit of a social, have a few more drinks, talk to everyone else. That's one of the big things about the YouTube Bloggers Match. I know I haven't gone along to each and every swim, introducing each other like I used to days gone by, or years gone by, shall I say. But there's so many of us that come now, that would take up all day. If you recognise people at the social, then great. If not, then maybe have a look on, just Google YouTube Bloggers Match 2023, and you'll find the other people that are here. That's my little get out of jail free card, because I haven't gone along. I've been lazy. I've been sitting in my swim trying to catch fish. But that's the joy of this session, is that it's a really good social. So I'm gonna go down there, enjoy my food, enjoy my cider, enjoy the social. Well, the social was good fun, and so was the last few hours sleep I've just had. But 2:30 in the morning, this one absolutely belted off on the one that's closer to the island. And it's the smallest one of the trip for me. And I'm just ticking away on the odd fish here and there, enjoying my session. There's no way I'm going to catch up to the winner at the moment. I think Jack's on £30 6 ounce, and a very well-deserving winner at that. It's a beautiful fish. But I'm happy with this, the odd fish here and there. Rod's back out, the joy of having everything set up with the solid bags. It was a case of pinging one back out. So hopefully we'll get another one on sunrise, which was the time that I had that bite yesterday. But this one's a very welcome little bonus, and hopefully a sign of fish moving into the area. Thank you, buddy. Well, good morning, and unfortunately it's been a very quiet one once again. I caught that morning bite at 2:30, so a bit earlier than yesterday's bite by a couple of hours, but it definitely seems like this spot is going to produce a fish, maybe two if you're lucky, in the early hours before they push back out. Because once again this morning I've been watching out in the middle of the water, and it's just fish after fish rolling. And sure enough, a few of the lads further down have been having fish throughout the night and this morning. They're just not held up in front of us. The same for Jay and Chris next door. They've had the odd fish each. So it's really been odd fish, couple of fish, and then it picks up. I think Nathan next door's had 5, and then Hugh and Sean have had, I don't know, probably about the same each as well. I think they've been doing quite well. And then a few more further down. Dan's blanked actually between Carp Course and Swansea, and then I'm losing track of who it is. You've got Leon down there. I think he's caught one. I'm not entirely sure. And then you got Ben Stager. You got Jack. You got a few others down there. Just trying to think. Fennel, I think he's caught now. So there's a few fish, but it definitely seems to be the ones that are right in the middle and the main body of water have had the majority of the fish in front of them and have had the majority of the fish. That being said, the biggest fish has come to Jack at £30 6. It's a beautiful fish as well, and it's one that well deserves to be the winner. The fishing bloggers have just had one. Hugh had one, sorry, at 26, 6, something like that. A beautiful common, almost like a two-tony type colour. So remember to check all these guys out if you want to see their versions of this event. It's been a great fun. The social last night was good fun, and got my head down and obviously had that fish at 2:30, and I was expecting to get another bite early doors this morning. Because I had that bite on the first morning at about 5:20, I fully expected that to be the sort of bite time again, but it seemed that that bite came earlier on and nothing since. I've had the coots come in a few times, been watching them, the odd fish shown pretty much where I first started fishing on Friday, before realising I was completely out of my water. I was in next people's water opposite. Before I knew that, and where I put quite a bit of bait out, the fish have continually kept rolling over that. So I think if no one had been there and I was in my own water, which is two variables that are out of my control, and I should have checked beforehand, if I'd been fishing where I initially put that bait out, I'm pretty sure I would have had a few more fish. It was slightly further out, more on that plateau, and the fish have definitely been holding up there. But because I'm sort of 4 or 5 rod lengths shorter than that now, I'm not quite on that main body of fish. But I rung the changes. I changed from solid bag, from Fluoro D-rigs to solid bags to counteract the weed. And I had 2 bites on solid, so I've had 2 on the Fluoro Ds, 2 on the solid. So which one's better? I don't know. I think the way I'd be able to test it is if I was really on top of a load of fish and catching a lot of them, then try either or. I might have got more of a outcome that was more clear, shall I say. So I'm not sure if it made much difference, but peace of mind, fishing over where I am. The coots are diving on me again now. fishing over where I am with the patches of silkweed, I was definitely more confident with the solid bags. And the fact that that one that went off at 2:30 this morning went out mid-afternoon yesterday, so it's probably 12 hours it had been out. So I knew it was just sat there, presented perfectly. And if fish had been about, I would have picked one up sooner. So the fact that I only had one at 2:30, I really do think it's fish milling around the island, finding a bit of bait, taking it, and that's just getting the odd bite here and there. We've got about 20 minutes till I got to ring the rods in. So yes, they are still out, but odds are the next time you're going to see me is when we're doing the very final award ceremony.
Right, so that's the end of the session then, and a bit of a cracking one, lads. Everyone enjoyed it?
Yeah.
Good. I think we've had about 36 fish out between us all, so yeah, not a bad little average, and quite a few 20s, so well done all. This year's winner is Jack with a lovely 30-pounder, so fair play. So Jack, here you go, mate.
Thank you very much.
You get a really joyful effort of having to pay 15 quid to get it engraved. So
Thank you very much. Yeah, been a great trip, and yeah, what a cracking fish to win it with.
yeah.
So yeah, cheers, lads.
Well, mate. Happy
Happy days.
That's enough for this year
done, mate.
then, so safe travels home, lads, and we'll see you all again next year.
Hey!
Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah.
Well done, Hugh.
Cheers,
Dan.
Nice one, mate. Whose else is this on here?
Well done.
Thank you very much.